This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome to Level 3, Lesson 3. And as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So we finish up our student teaching today. I believe we have Oscar and Amy. So Oscar, whenever you are ready.
Good morning, everybody. You guys hear me?
Yep, hear you loud and clear.
All right, what's going on? Okay, so I have clove up
Okay.
and RAD between, or I'm sorry, MRIN. Those are my top two picks. I think they have the best show of hand.
Okay.
Just, I think I'm gonna go with clove. The only thing I'm worried about is it might just continue being an exception because of all the nice off-level buying it's having. But we should anticipate a pullback below 15, even below 1450, as that's where our initial show of hand was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much where I'm at. And then I have my questions. Do we have controlling prints? We have controlling prints at both 15 and 1450.
Mm-hmm.
Our print personality, it's a little high. I'd say maybe about 5-ish, I'd say, just because of the larger bursts that make it a little bit bigger. Maybe even I'd go maybe even 6.
Yeah, so something like this, I would probably go even a little bit. I would go 7, 8.
7, 8.
Because most of the
Okay.
bursts, if we look, especially even like the off-level buying and stuff like that, it can print. So when
Yeah.
you have something like this,
Okay.
even if you get 4 or 5 prints, it's not going to affect it as much as what we see, when we keep seeing these huge bursts that are coming in.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, because of the first initial 1445 when that was about 10, 15 prints there.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Then what about our range? I mean, I guess our range isn't super relevant. This thing should be a little bit more than $1.32, I'd assume.
Yeah, I mean, I would 100%. Because just think about what the volume is right now. We have 8.7
Yeah.
million shares being traded in the pre-market. More than likely, our range is going to be based off our prints, not based off an average.
Okay. And then our increments of trading, it's trading, I got 20-cent increments here on my chart.
Mm-hmm.
And what type of trade? I mean, I don't know if I would take a number one trade on this. I know we need to pull back, but just the fact that we've seen so much buying in it, looks like it's more a little bit, all the off-level buying tells me that the timing is a little bit quicker than normal. So I don't know if I would personally take a number one trade, at least not, especially not in the position so close to this 15. Wouldn't want to get caught in an exception. So I would have to personally wait for a pullback and then just wait for a trigger towards the upside for that buying. So I would be
Absolutely.
taking a number 4 trade.
I 100% agree, because you got to think about it too. Even if it does have to pull back between 1450, the amount of off-level buying that we've seen coming into it tells us that it's probably going to be really quick. So is it really worth that trade to the downside when we have, the ability to really get, this thing going above? And we come over here, we look at the daily. I mean, this thing can move if it wants to.
Yeah. I
This
wouldn't want to
is
be
one of those type
caught
of
up in that.
personalities that could go from 15 to 20.
Correct. Yeah, the risk versus reward wouldn't be there on it. Even if I do have shares or I do get approved, I don't think I would. At least not anytime soon.
Has
Would
anyone
have to
tried
see
to
a
get
lot.
shares? I haven't even tried because we had class. I highly
Somebody
doubt
said that
they're.
they got shares.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, somebody said that in the chat, I think, or in the meeting, but I'm still pending.
Okay.
And then does it need to pull up or pull back? Yes, it does. And I'd say to a minimum, that print line would be, ideal, just because we do have that buying at 1450. So pull back to that 1437 print line would be perfect. Not everything works out perfectly, so it just depends on if we get that pullback or not.
So in a stock like this, let's think about something. If
Okay.
it pulls back, let's say to 1480 or whatever number, but somewhere close to that 15, and then triggers back up, is that a trade that we can take?
I think I would take it. I don't know if I should take it, but I think I would take it just because of the fact that we have so much off-roll buying above 15. And
There you
technically,
go.
15 being a psychological level, if it's pullbacks a tad bit from that, and I think I'd be okay with taking it.
I agree. Okay, our percentage is going to be a little bit lower because of that.
Yeah,
But at the same time, when you have that much off-level buying that's coming into it, this is one of those stocks, like I said, I mean, it could go to 15 to 20. So the risk versus reward is actually there.
yeah, yeah. In that case, it would definitely be there.
hmm
So pretty much it. That's my breakdown for CLOV. And now I just wait, see what time and sales is giving me, if I see anything new.
Yeah, so we have our game plan, game plan in
Mhm.
place. Now it's just analyzing, seeing what's coming in. So we have about 8 minutes before the market opens. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at time and sales, and when something stands out, I want you to tell us.
Okay.
What would you say the probability of close just barring down at open due to buying? I would say it's very, very high. Okay, but not for the time frame, not for a long time. So if I had to draw this chart, I wanted to bar down because that's what the rules tell us it needs to do. But it would be like one of those, that first minute bar that comes back in and then that trigger back towards the upside. If I had to draw it in my head right now, because we just have over that 15 level, there was no lack of off level buying. We got great buying that came into there. So it's showing us that eventually this stock is going higher than 15. It's just we really want them to kind of take those shares first, and then from there take that trigger back up towards money time.
How conservative should we be on our price target? Would you say 1550 is too conservative? Would you think 16 is too much? I mean, I know
So with
we
the
have off
amount
level
of
buying at
buying,
15 up to
16,
1520. So
yeah, so 16 has no problem, but it's trading in 20. It's showing us right now that it's trading in 25 or 20-cent increments. So we're going to put it at 25. So we're going to start with 50 because it's double. And then guess what? If it
yeah,
skyrockets past 1550, God bless us.
bonus. Okay.
But the amount
We
of
got
buying that it
a
has
couple
at
more prints at
1450,
15.
the amount of buying that has 15, 16 technically is even conservative. The only thing here is though that they had time to build, but if we look at the actual volume itself, was there really much building going on?
I mean, it looks like they bought quite a bit. They've been buying a lot, but I mean, the volume hasn't been anything. I mean, it's decent. I don't know if it would be enough to be building, depending on how large their position they'd want it to be. So
the amount of buying that we've seen up here, and we look at the actual volume itself during this consolidation before the morning started, the actual volume didn't come in
okay,
until it started moving. So they really haven't had a ton of time to build. But then we got to bring our story in from yesterday. They kept hitting 14. We have enough buying in this to get to 20 overall, but we have to look at it as a trade, not as a story. So really what we need them to do is we
okay.
want them to pull this thing down back hard. Because you got to think, everyone right now, okay, that saw this going on during the pre-market, what did they do with their brokers? Oh, the retail.
Yeah, they're all trying to get in.
Absolutely. So buy. So it would be perfect for them to bring it all the way down here. Okay, add more shares for all the retail people that are coming back in, and then from there push the stock up. Because what's going to happen is when they add to the inventory to give to the retail traders, those brokers, it's going to be perfect to push this thing up.
Got some more nice buying at 15 there.
Definitely stands out.
So what you were saying is, if they'd had time to build, you mean before the initial move towards the upside? Yeah, the volume was pretty dead at that time. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what because even like when we see consolidation, we always think build or, it's basically acquire or distribute, but you got to look at what actually happened. So there's really not a ton that was going on during that time. You're talking about an average of about 25,000, which for a stock like this, if it's going to really be able to get that move to go up, just isn't enough.
All right, so we got 4 minutes for open.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take a look at the volume patterns or
Oh,
that you see? I mean, it kind of looks like, I don't know if we'd say kind of like a flaggish forming a little bit.
yeah, well, it's perfect. It's a really ugly staircase kind of looking thing. So yeah, it's more of a
Okay.
flag coming in. And then if we look that this volume pattern, once the market opens, it's going to skyrocket past this. We're gonna like this is one of those stocks I wouldn't have up on multiple screens because it's going to more than likely it's going to freeze a lot of people. We're going to be expect a lot. Steve, upside down teacup.
Just gonna close some
See,
workspaces, make sure I don't freeze.
so one of the things that
Okay.
we want to think about too is that this thing is at 15, a huge amount. So it's almost overweighing those off-level prints. So we're still going to be looking for that move down. We don't want to take a quick move to the upside immediately because we got to think about something. So when the bar comes to the upside first, we need a huge pullback based off that 15 print. So that first bar that comes to the upside, we're going to have plenty of time to get into this trade to make money. There's enough buying at 15 that we'll be able to make our 50 cents, very
Conservatively.
conservatively at some point. So we really want to kind of get that confirmation. That first bar, if it goes straight up, isn't really where we want to be. And I know that sounds crazy. And would I take it personally? I probably would because the risk versus reward is there. But if your percentages aren't where they need to be, you need that pullback first. And you got to be careful because that original bar to the upside is going to get a bunch of people in. And then we really should pull back to this print line based off of what we see here. So we're kind
So
of,
now that you've seen
we're
it,
in between an exception and following the rules. This stock is more of an exception print wise.
so the more you see it print at 15, does it still are you still dissuaded to take a number one trade just because of all the off level buying still, or do you start leaning more towards a number one trade?
I'm going to let it show me first. Because like I said, either the pullback's going to, remember our possibilities, either the pullback is going to be gigantic, okay, or we're going to get that run and it's going to start to run back because we have all off level buying. So we're kind of, it's about a 60-40 chance right now of pullback, 60% pullback, 40% that it's just going to start to run. So I'm going to let it, because each one has to be so big, I don't need to be in immediately. I can let it show me what its intentions are first, and then from there, I can make my decision.
Okay.
Because like I said, if it's going to run, it's not just going to run to, to the high. It's going to actually run, but because of how much it's hit at 15, it really does need to pull back a large amount. But the large pullback really doesn't have to be long because of all the off-level buying that comes back in, that's been coming in.
All right. So here's our bar down.
Mm-hmm. Now we want to analyze our prints as we're getting this bar down. Are we seeing more people that are coming in to actually sell to help it continue down? Or are we seeing more buying coming in that's showing us that the stock is ready to go?
I don't see anything that stands out specifically, but I don't see too much selling coming in still. I see mostly buying.
Mm-hmm.
The prints aren't that large, but I still don't see any big selling that would tell me it's going to continue down. Starting to see a little bit of selling now.
Is that our trigger?
I don't think it is.
So we talked about this coming in before. Okay, that push to the top. What's our trigger going to look like in this?
It should be pretty big. It should. You
Exactly.
shouldn't have to question it. Yeah.
100%. So when I ask, is that a trigger? And you're kind of like, well, it could be a trigger, but it's not. That's not a trigger then. This
Yeah.
type of stock, with the amount of buying that we have into there, it's going to be obvious. There's not going to be something that we're like, well, and remember, we don't have to rush this type of trade because we know when it's going to go. It's almost like the MOXC that we talked about yesterday. Okay. We know that it's going to move a lot. So we don't have to try to get in at the bottom. Remember, bottoms and tops aren't for us. The amount of times it hit 15, to follow the rules, it really needs to pull back at a minimum to that 1450. It really should pull back here. So when it's time to release, we should have no questions whatsoever. See, again, looks like a trigger, right? It would qualify as a trigger because it's got high volume and it's got price action. Okay, but it needs to be bigger because, like I said, we don't have to rush it. Okay, what about now? Is that what a trigger looks like?
We are getting really good off level buying right below 15 there. We have some buying at 1498.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was
just think about how
trigger.
big this bar is. Look, is this an obvious trigger?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a trigger there.
Okay, we want to go back and we want to look what happened at 15. Well, that doesn't really help us much, right?
Yeah. All right.
We get put in that area because we know 15 is going to play games. This does not help. Doesn't show us anything. It looks like selling that's coming into that 15, followed by bids. So how would we take that? If we got into this stock, how would we take this?
I feel like regardless of which way you take it, when you have such big prints at 15, whether it's selling or buying, you know that you're going to have to most likely bar down from that just because of the.
Yeah, well, something happened too. What does this mean when we have prints followed by bids at the end? What pattern is that?
What pattern is that? Is that when it pushes up and then comes back down?
Yeah, we get quick
6.
move up, right? And then back down. So when we see something like this, that's not a good spot to be into a trade. We'd still see our trigger there, but when we get those prints, we know that we don't have a lot of time left inside the move to the upside. Eventually, we're coming in. We have so many prints at 15 that this thing needed a big pullback, but this is a pattern that tells us that our time frame of being in the trade is coming to an end. Okay, we have these 1505, so it's still telling us we're going to come up. Let's say we would have got shaken out of that trade because we didn't recognize our pattern at 15. Guess what? We're still looking for a trade to the upside. There's plenty of buying and there's plenty of that, what's shown us. It's just right now, what are they doing?
They're just taking more shares and pulling back. Is there any spot that you would avoid to enter? Being too close to 15. I think yesterday we had some stocks where you said I would wait till it was above.
Yeah. So at this point, right in that 15 area, we know there's going to be tons of games because we know that's where the biggest market maker is going to be. Okay. But then we got to remember, we got to think about what our risk versus reward was. Once we saw those prints at 15 that had the bids that followed afterwards, we know quick move up, move back down. Okay. That basically is confirming the fact that we have that we have to get that big pullback first. Okay. Almost exactly like what was the stock yesterday that when we were talking about in the morning?
I think it was ENTX, or maybe that was
yes, ENTX, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So ENTX, that's exactly what we're seeing, this same scenario. So it looks like, this is a big move to the downside, but it's really that pullback from the huge amount of buying. Now that we're by our print line, we're a lot safer to take our trade. We just haven't seen anyone come in yet on our actual prints to get that stock moving back towards the upside.
So nice. burst of buying there, but then followed by another burst of selling. So nothing.
And remember, it needs to pull back from 1450, right? From the original
Yeah.
ask prints. So it's actually following the rules very well. All right, someone came in, more buying at 1450.
1450.
Okay, what was our reaction here?
We got some selling reaction, tells us it should be pulling back even more. So you would put 1425, maybe those orb lines there around where you would think the pullback would be enough. That selling that came out at the 1441, that tells me a little bit more than that.
So really what I want is I want it to hold the original trigger.
Okay.
Okay, so any point above here to get a trigger back towards that upside, as long as we have the buying, I'm okay with. Because this is originally where the person started. So if we look at the low of that bar,
1423.
1423. So the fact that it held up above there, a trigger to the upside right now, I'm okay with. As long as we have that buying, which we know we have the buying up top. Those bids, even though these bids that came in at 1441, they kind of spark it. Okay, but it doesn't give us the right to get into it because it's really telling us that, it should come back down. Because we have that 1450 followed by those bids. So we know the bids are pushing it up right now. If we did get into a trade like this, we have to think that our time frame is very short, that we're going to be in the actual trade for.
Okay. And do you want to see some nice off-level buying to give you some confirmation that it's time right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which, as we can see, it's moving up, but it's really moving up from those 41 bids.
Yeah.
Which is that's not the substance that we want within our trade. Because that means
it looks like
movement.
it's going to
That
take
doesn't
some
mean
more
time
shares.
to that doesn't mean time to move. That just means that the stock is going to move. So right now our long trade is far away from us because of how much that came in at that 1441.
Okay. So at this point, would you stay looking at this stock? I mean, it's been 8 minutes or so. Or do you want to move on, or how would you go about this?
This is one of those things that I would put up on a different screen. I'd put it on the side, and then I would have my orders ready. So I would continue to keep moving the orders because eventually we're going to get that bar that comes back up to the top. But as of right now, there's a bunch of other stocks that are out there moving. So I'm going to be looking for something else until that trade actually comes into place. Remember, I don't have to be, when this is time to go, I don't have to be perfect on this. I don't have to get it right at the trigger because I know when it's time to go, it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense. We have enough room to play with a little bit before.
So let's say by the time that I pull it back up and I go over there, it's 25 cents away from the trigger. That's no big deal because we know that it's got that much more room to be able to come back up.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if you guys want, we can move on. We got some 1750 bid prints in RAD. I think we also have ask prints though, so it might be a little mixed.
All right. What's our print personality?
I'd say we got about 4 or 5. Round
up
closer to 5 just because of the large. Yeah. Just be a little bit more or less conservative, I guess. Just say 5. All right. Let's see. So I have ask prints on my chart. Let me take a look at yours. I got ask prints at 1750, and then I also have bid prints.
Yeah. So it started off with 1750. Yeah. And what is this? So we want 2, but what does this mean to us if we have 1750 bids with an ask print attached to it? Same pattern that we saw before.
Yeah, quick move down, then back up.
All right, and then a quick move down, then back up.
Ask print.
Yeah, what does this tell us?
Followed by some ask prints.
Followed by ask prints. Then we see, do we have the off-level buying to tell us that there's a move to the upside coming?
We got some buying after that. Some nice 1740, nice 1737 burst.
There's one problem though. If we were going to be looking to take this back towards the upside, what's our big problem? Does it really need to move that much?
Yeah, I was gonna say our range isn't too big. We don't have. I mean, I guess we'd have to have our price target at that print line of 1787, which only gives us about 50 cents realistically. A little less from taking that trigger, so you got about 20, 30 cents that we can make in there. So it's probably not worth risk versus reward.
Yeah, so we're probably, what's a better number trade to try to take in this?
Yeah, maybe probably take a number 2, wait for the pull up, and take the actual trigger towards the downside.
I don't know if you're still watching, but Clove's getting real interesting.
Go back to Clove. All right, then yeah, we could go back to Clove. Let's see. Held that print line pretty well. Got some nice off level buying bursts here and there. 1465, 1460.
Now, is this the bar that we're looking for it to go back up?
No, I still haven't seen a real trigger yet. I'd anticipate at least, I don't know, maybe anything above probably about 1.2 million, give or take, 1.5. It's a little
somewhere,
too much.
somewhere right in that area, 1.5, 1.4.
Yeah.
We're just continuously seeing more and more buying coming in at these levels, though. What do we notice about this 1450? There's something that we should notice in comparison.
The prints are getting smaller.
Yeah, the bursts are getting smaller, aren't they?
Yeah.
What is that telling us?
Tells us they're not building as much anymore at that 1450.
So time frame's getting closer, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
We have a real nice volume pattern that's sitting right here. Be a real good time to look for a bar coming back towards that upside.
Okay. Got some selling there, 1456. It's about at print personality. A bit above from current print personality.
Yep, and we have the aspirants at 1450, so we still need to pull
so,
back. So as much as this looks like an exception, it's been following the prints perfectly.
Yeah, it followed the rules really well.
So we got to get that out of our mind. Everyone, the fear of, missing out. It's very easy to, try to get in on these moves, but guess what? It just hasn't shown us it yet. There's just nothing that we can really do. You have 1450 aspirants followed by selling. Well, that tells us even though the stock's moving up, selling brought it up a little bit, still going to come back down.
Yeah, and it really hasn't given us anything to tell us. There hasn't been even a fake entry. There hasn't even been anything close to an actual trigger. So just have to be patient.
Absolutely. And remember, it only takes one. So even if we have to watch this for, we definitely want to move on to something that's actually moving at that time because the morning is going to be a best trade. We're going to be able to find another trade that's coming into there. But this is something that even if we have to wait all day for that trigger to come back up, guess what? Who cares? Because that one trade is going to make for a hell of a day.
Yeah.
All right, Oscar, great job.
All right.
Very, very
guys,
good.
thank you so much.